the Alaska Constitution, Article 1, Declaration of Rights. This Constitution is dedicated to the principles that all persons have a natural right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the enjoyment of rewards of their own industry. That all persons are equal and entitled to equal rights, opportunities, and protections under the law, and that all persons have a corresponding obligation to the people and to the state. Welcome to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. Along with me is Mr. David Webb, engineering and producing this program back up at the mothership of KGTL, making everything sound terrific in both FM and AM 620, FM 100. Bill O'Reilly was in Southeast Alaska last week. Did you know that? Yeah, it turns out Bill's a pinhead. That's right. He said that we have terrible weather in Alaska, but he somehow got lucky and got some nice weather. Bill, do not be imbecilic when discussing Alaska's weather, because the spin stops here in Alaska. However, he did suggest that everyone should come up here. So he told some, 12, 14 million people they ought to make it to Alaska. And for that, we thank you, Bill. And you've pulled it out. You've pulled up on the stick. You're no longer a pinhead. But don't talk about Alaska's weather like that. Come on. Here's a good laugh. A listener emailed me this, and I won't read them all, but there's a couple of good ones that I will read. Dear God, these are letters to God from children. Dear God, I went to this wedding, and they kissed right in church. Is that okay? Neil. Dear God, I think the stapler is one of your greatest inventions. Ruth. Low expectations. Dear God, in the Bible times, did they really talk that fancy, says Jennifer. Dear God, I think about you sometimes, even when I'm not praying, said Elliot. That's a good one. Dear God, I'm an American. What are you, Robert? Robert, I can tell you definitively, God is an American as well. American. Dear God, please put another holiday between Christmas and Easter. There's nothing good in there now, says Jenny. Dear God, I love to watch... dear God, if you watch in church on Sunday, I will show you my new shoes, Mickey. This one, I think I'll close on this one here. Dear God, if we come back as something, please don't let me be Jennifer Horton because I hate her. Denise. You got to love children. Speaking of children, I was going to spend some time talking about last night's Homer City Council meeting. That's Homer, Alaska. And I decided not to. I was going to pull out some highlights, play them for you, and discuss some of the decision-making, some of the policy, some of the faux pas, and share with you my reaction to last night's council meeting, but I decided not to. So we'll instead, we'll do something else. I'm just kidding.
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stoned, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
Oh, no way I'm going to skip this. Last night's council meeting, yeah, we have lots and lots of highlights to discuss, you and I, and much, much more. So don't go anywhere. We've got the greatest show on earth coming up here on Alaska Matters. Mike Dye is going to be on the program in a little bit. He's with Homer Voice for Business. Also, after the 1 o'clock news, don't go anywhere because your congressional candidate, John Cox, running for U.S. House, he'll be our guest at 1 o'clock. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about a couple of things that are going on. By the way, you're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, and you can listen back to this program at AdventureAlaskaRadio.com, AdventureAlaskaRadio.com. Also, send your emails, story@xyz.net, story@xyz.net. And if there's something you'd like us to share on air, be sure to mention that as well, because otherwise we won't presume you want it broadcast unless you tell me. There's a big debate going on. You may have seen it's all over the place, so I know you have, unless you've been living under a rock. The whole beach bum food stamp recipient that was featured on Fox News and others all around the country have picked up on it. And I don't want to harp on something that's already been discussed infinitum and is possibly even a broken record at this point. But it reminds me of a conversation that I observed online recently. I'm not going to use names. I won't use exact quotes. But there was a response to a welfare recipient who, and there's no other way to describe it, I'm sure there's other terms, but I'm just going to call it like I see it, a welfare recipient who was bragging online about purchases about to be made with some excess monies paid in arrears for some previous benefits, etc. needed to spend it down so this individual could continue to qualify for future benefits. Needed to spend it down, quote unquote. And somebody took it upon themselves to gently nudge this person, and I wanted to share just a piece of that. At least try to remember, they admonish, at least try to remember that making purchases of things that retain their value or are necessities is the best way to spend your money. Movies and games are fun, but hardworking people who pay their taxes are supporting you. Remember to consider that the benefits you receive, even though you need them, are at the expense of those who work very hard for them and often have to go without fun and entertaining extras in order to meet their tax burden. It's the difference between feeling entitled and feeling thankful.
Wake up, go down the beach, meet up with my friends, skate it up, hit on some chicks, beer, start drinking.
All day, every day.
I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everyone.
My EBT SNAP card, it's got the coast of California on it.
That is the height of unfairness.
Just go out to the human resource office, have your birth certificate and your social security card. I don't got a paycheck coming in, so I qualify.
I believe that this country succeeds when everyone gets a fair shot.
Get on some chicks,
Beer?
start drinking.
All day, every day.
When everyone does their fair share.
They got it now, it's where you only do it once a year.
Restore fairness.
Free money. It's radical. Why not?
Everyone engages in fair play, and everybody gets a fair shot,
Free money. It's radical.
and everybody does their fair share.
Go out surf every day.
You know, rebuilding this economy based on fair play, a fair shot.
Go out surf every day.
And there you have, in a nutshell, exactly what I think is wrong and broken with the system, and it starts at the top down. For more on that subject, I'd encourage you to investigate The Free Lunch Myth by Milton Friedman. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and nobody makes the point better than Milton Friedman. I want to thank you for participating in that. By the way, I did produce that. That came from Story Productions, and soon will be heard around the world on the World Wide Web, www.adventurealaskaradio.com, with due credit given to, of course, Fox News for hunting down and finding that beach bum. And, it seems to me that in part, the guy's got an agenda. He is looking to get a record deal. He's looking to get some fame and fortune for his little music industry. Whatever he's trying to do, he willingly participated as a doofus and as a clown. But I think he stands to represent what is wrong and broken with the system, irregardless of what his intention of being part of that program was. I do believe that he is a great poster child for what is broken, not what is right with the system. And what is right with the system is when you see someone who absolutely needs it. They're doing their best they can. They're doing what they can for themselves and yet need a hand up. Not a hand out, but a hand up, and use it for a short period of time. And that's what it was designed for. And especially now that the requirement for even seeking employment has been removed, I find that highly offensive. A driver arrested in deadly Diamond Boulevard DUI crash. 2 teenagers were killed last week when Stacey Graham's vehicle was, she drove it into them and killed them. Drunk, 3 times the legal limit. Remember what we were talking about? We were talking about the feckless way with which we deal with drunk drivers. And now, as a result, we've got 2 dead teenagers in Anchorage. There should be the fear of God in everybody who takes a drink and then gets behind a wheel. It should be very, very real and alarming, the reaction that we'll as a community and as a state, a society will have towards you beyond, what was it, somebody in, I forget which state he was in, but his 17th conviction. He's now going to go away for 7 years. 17 convictions? Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mike Dye with Homer Voice for Business. We'll have highlights from last evening's Homer, Alaska City Council meeting. That and more coming up here on Alaska Matters. So tomorrow in the Homer Tribune, and you can check it out online, homertribune.com, and wherever newspapers are sold, Homer Tribune will have an article called "When Trust is Lost, It's Hard to Find." And it's something that I wrote as a result of last evening's Homer City Council meeting, trying to put my head around, the water and sewer rates. And you must say combined water and sewer, or you'll be held to task by some of the council members if you don't say water and sewer, because it's not just water. But putting a finer point on it, I think that trust is missing. I think there's a void, there's a vacuum when it comes to trusting what is happening as it pertains to the management of the enterprise fund, the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, and possibly other things at stake here. So I want to play a couple of clips, but wanted to direct you to that article tomorrow, Homer Tribune or homertribune.com. Check that out by me, Chris Story. Now, Mike Dye is on the line. We'll be talking with Mike in a moment. But first, I want to play a couple of clips of Mike testifying last night at the Homer City Council meeting. We'll start here.
Business friendly, I heard, came up early, and this isn't about being business friendly, this particular issue. It's about the whole community and what we're paying. The natural gas issue, I think everybody wants natural gas. The way it's went about, with government control and lack of competition and a reverse vote of people that, vote if you don't want it. I think that leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. The insults at this council level that go unchecked to people that have dissenting views, that's not business friendly. Thank you.
And then there was a reply. So then Mike was asked to stand for a question. So let's hear one more clip.
Yeah, I'm wondering, repeatedly we hear you say that this proposed rate model is not business friendly, and when I look at the numbers...
That's not, I said the exact opposite.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I heard they said that it was about being business friendly, and this is about the whole community. This particular issue, as far as being business friendly and not business friendly, I was talking about issues about insulting people that have dissenting views, about issues about natural gas and how you went about that process. That wasn't about the water issue.
Okay, well, let's talk about
sewer issue.
Let's talk about
we're not going to talk about that. The rates if we're not talking about the water and sewer rates specifically, we need to set that aside to a later conversation, because this is very specifically conversation and public hearing about the water rates.
Well, I am a member of the public.
I understand. And if you would like to step forward and make a statement about the water rates, I'd be happy to have you do it.
I'd very much like to do that.
Okay. You can go right after Mr. Dye.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start. I mean, basically then Beauregard Burgess goes on to testify basically as a council person about how he can't understand why people don't understand what's happening here. And yet, here's Ken Kasner, a member of the Water and Sewer Task Force.
The amount that the general fund has charged the enterprise fund for administration is very, very high, and I think unwarranted.
And that's at the crux of this whole issue, is what is really happening inside of the enterprise fund with the water and sewer rates. And welcome, please, Mike Dye with Homer Voice for Business. Mike, you've been diligent. You've been there at the table as a representative of a business in town with Land's End, understanding that. But you're also there as a concerned resident and citizen, understanding that we are, according to some rate studies that have been uncovered, not by the city of Homer, but uncovered elsewhere by CH2M Hill, that we are paying upwards of something like three times higher than our neighbor up the road in Soldotna Kenai area. And again and again and again, you're accused of not coming to the table soon enough. You have a bone to pick, maybe even wish to bribe or slip some money under the table. Mike, bless you for keeping on task and coming back each council meeting and keeping them on task.
Well, thank you, Chris. Ken Kasner made some good points last night about the budget. And, he went on later in the meeting to talk about, the fact that they did make some changes at the task force level. And I responded to the mayor last night that, we've been participating for 6 months, but it's more like 9, it's almost 10 months that we've been participating in the process at the task force level. I'm not sure when you need to start to be considered.
Right. Well, that's just it. I mean, if you spend 10 months as a council or a task force as a group climbing the ladder as fast and swiftly as you can, and only to be pointed out, even at the 11th hour, you've climbed the wrong wall. You've had your ladder leaning along the wrong wall, such as the new finance director steps in, takes one glance at the work that's been done by the task force and says, wait a minute, you made a mistake. You used the wrong flow for operating costs here, and that's a $250,000 fix in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Should he have been chastised for not having come to the table 9 months earlier?
I don't think so. I don't think they allowed those folks to be participating in the process. I think they specifically excluded them, and they talk about why they weren't providing information. So no, I don't think they can. The fact that Ken made a point last, they made some changes, And our bill was going to go up $70,000 a year with their first proposal. To me, that's much like going out to the general public and telling them that at the outset your assessment for natural gas is going to be $12,000, but now we cut it to $4,000, so it's a great deal for everybody.
Right.
It's if you start higher than you should, and you bring it down to something, the point just seemed a little disingenuous. Much like Councilman Burgess's comments that hey, come down and find out for yourself. At the task force level, when we had the former finance director, provide us information so we could understand how this was going to impact us, because we had a very difficult time understanding it at the outset. At the task force meeting, he chided them for getting involved and helping us understand it. So
let me clear this up now, Mike. You're saying that Beauregard Burgess, councilman and task force member, chided the administration and the finance department for assisting you in understanding the numbers.
That's correct. I wonder if that's in the minutes. They keep talking about the minutes. I hope it's very complete. But yeah, you'll find that in the minutes in the October, November time frame, somewhere in there, December maybe, when we were involved there at the task force level.
I guess it just depends on the definition of transparent.
What's that?
I guess it just depends on your idea of transparent. Maybe that's transparency. Let me emphasize one more point made by Assemblyman Bill Smith. And I think, Mike, it goes to your point exactly, and maybe the point of a lot of different members of the Homer Voice for Business and others that are concerned about the overall cost of government.
Presumably to help out people who have less money than others.
Now, he's talking about the exemption for your primary residence going from $20,000 right now to $50,000. And number one error is that he's making a presumption that it's to help people, as though some sort of welfare program to help people that don't have as much money. That's not the point. We'll pick that up later, and he continues.
But of course, budgets being the way they are, if we need the same amount of money to run the government, then it'll have to come out of some other tax, like raising the mill rate or something like that.
So if we need the same amount of money to run the government, it's going to have to come from another pocket, be it raising of the millage rate or what have you. Never is discussed, Mike, the idea of reducing the cost of doing business as a government. Why is it so difficult, do you think, for so many elected officials or unelected autocrats to understand that we as a citizenry, business or not, are asking for it to cost less?
That's the issue that so many business people and individuals have faced over the last few years, and it's not something that really comes onto the table at the government level. And I, that is one of the reasons, in addition to the fact that that we formed the Homer Voice for Business. That's one of the reasons, in addition to the fact that many of the people that are in this have had separate issues over the last 2 years. And you go to the council to present the facts that you're finding, or present the ulterior positions or facts or theories that they should consider, and you really leave that table being insulted or feeling insulted, at least with a couple of the council people. I talked to Josh Garvey earlier, and he said, I've never been accused of being dishonest and deceitful. That was another comment Councilman Burgess made last night, and it's been very consistent. And I thought it was preposterous that, when I talk to my wife about a water bill, I don't ask her about the water and sewer bill. I don't use the sewer for any other reason than I get the water. So I think of it as my water bill. We put the water, or I didn't put it. Actually, someone else wrote it that wasn't at Land's End, but I support it. But we didn't put the word water and sewer, and I get chastised for not putting water and sewer in it. But over the last 2 months, one of the council people has been insulting people, insinuating they would be bribing people, and I think some of us that have been here a lot longer than he, and have obviously been, haven't been accused of being dishonest before. So I just found it preposterous that none of the council people are, chastising him or calling him to the mat on his comments.
Mike, I appreciate what you're doing, and I do like the idea of divorcing business versus citizen, or business versus non-business interest here, simply for the fact that this really is about the cost. Why is it roughly, according to that rate study, 3 times the cost here? And It's not going to be, that cost can't continually be shoved around from person to person, moving the pee under different people's mattresses until they feel it and go, wait a minute, I don't want that pee under my mattress anymore. Okay, fine. We'll put it under industrial. We'll put it under business. We'll put it under multifamily because there's lots of money there in these loopholes. Mike, continue what you're doing and keep in touch as it pertains to the Homer Voice for Business. Really appreciate it.
For that commission, Chris, I think we need to keep on them to look at that very thing. A lot of people talked about the budget last night and starting to look at expenses. We can't afford what they're charging us here.
Yeah, but Mike, you just need to suck it up. It's expensive to live here. You got to get a good job. They're not going to make it any cheaper. Councilman Lewis made it real clear at the last council meeting that if you can't afford to live here, tough. They're not going to make it any better or cheaper. Now, elaborate just a moment on the commission you speak of. So you're talking about, and many people did bring it up last evening, that it's maybe high time to put together a citizen commission that would look at the management and the accountancy of the enterprise fund, the water and sewer enterprise fund, versus just leaving it to administration to present to the council and the council to pass it.
Yeah, we need to have some management of that or input if they're going to ask us to continually and to continually take increasing costs where in situations where we're all having to decrease our costs, and we need to have some management of that or some input into that process of determining what is the right amount of cost for and what kind of controls are we placing so to be able to react to when usage goes down for whatever reason. Maybe it's the economic issue, maybe it's because they're raising the prices too high and users start to fall out of the system, but that's going to be an unsustainable model. We need to start looking and having the input, real input, into how they're structuring that budget and when they're making the appropriate cuts that need to be made. We just need to have some input as a community into that process.
All right, Mike Dye with Homer Voice for Business. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
You betcha. And we're going to have two new council people, Corbin Arno and Gus Van Dyke. Maybe it's a little preemptive, but I feel confident and secure in saying that we'll have two new council folks sitting there come October. Mike mentioned Josh Garvey. Let's hear his comments from last night.
Why are you not holding the city government accountable to actually eliminate the grossly excessive waste when our cost of water and sewer is the highest in the state? And you guys should have been proactive in researching and looking into these problems that we told you were there. Instead, it feels like you're just ignoring our warnings. We don't expect you to know everything, but we do expect you to listen when we come to you with real problems. Your lack of oversight has been embarrassing, and if you won't listen to us and represent the interests of this community, then we'll find people that will. Right now, you guys are fighting against the very people that elected you.
And I think Paul Huper put a fine point on the issue as well.
I think we're kind of losing sight of the big picture here, which is, we are 3 times higher than Soldotna. I mean, okay, we can go back and forth how the water's processed, the quality of the water. Okay, we got a more expensive system, but the bottom line is we're 3 times going higher and higher. And okay, Soldotna is raising their bill 2.5% a year, $6 a bill. I mean, that's not even a fair comparison. The bottom line is we are 3 times higher than Soldotna, probably twice as high as anybody else in the state. We're losing sight of the big picture, which is we got to find a way to reduce these water costs. I mean, they just have to come down. Let's shoot for 2 times higher than anybody else in the state. Is that
I tell you. And to me, this is indicative of a major flaw, perhaps, and I'm willing to debate this, willing to have the conversation. Is there a flaw in the way with which we govern ourselves? And that is to say, should we be looking at a strong mayor form of government? If we could reach out and speak directly to the mayor that is running the organization of Homer City, Inc., and have somebody there that is elected, somebody that is sitting at the helm of the community, that is somebody that now, Beth Wyeth, Mayor Wyeth, of course, you can reach out and speak to her, you can reach out and talk to her, but she is, for a lack of a better term, a figurehead more than anything, and that's just not her fault. That's the way the mayoral system is set up. She's weak in that she doesn't run the day-to-day organization. My point is to say this. Is it time to look at a strong mayor form of government, such as we have with the Kenai Peninsula Borough? There's arguments pro and con. People have contacted me since I broached this idea a while back and said, wait a minute, that's the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time, Story. Look out. Careful what you wish for. And people that I respect are telling me this. And you know what, though? Let's have the conversation. Let's debate it. Let's discuss it. Let's have a public discourse that decides for ourselves, do we want to be able to reach out and touch the person figuratively that is making the decisions, such as, well, you'll see it in tomorrow's Homer Tribune. We found a loophole. I don't want to hear my management, my city management. I don't want to hear, let's just say that my organization, either Story Productions, Story Real Estate, Story Properties, any of my companies, I don't want to hear anybody that works with me works for me or with me, Chris, we found a loophole. You're able to charge advertisers an extra fee that they don't even know about. Then I'm going to say to that person, hey, you know what? You remember that pasteboard box you passed when you walked in? It was sitting just to the left of the door. Go ahead and grab it. Put your stuff in it, and don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. I want you out. I don't want to hear anybody talking about a loophole in so much as you're talking about taking from people's livelihoods. Check it out. I just really feel like trust is gone, trust is lost, and it's hard to find. The solution, you'll read all about it in tomorrow's Homer Tribune. And when we come back, John Cox, congressional candidate, will be here. Can he really beat Don Young? Does he stand a chance? And why does he want the job? Why does he want the job? Plus, we'll take you to Blackwater Bend for free during our Alaskan Mindbender. We'll be back with more after the news. I'm Chris Story. Come back to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, and this is Alaska Matters. Welcome to what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. We're broadcasting live from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the home of Story Productions and the nerve center of all things possible. I want to welcome you and encourage you to stay tuned. We've got John Cox will be coming up in just a moment. He's running for Don Young's current seat in the U.S. House. Why does he want the job, and does he have a shot at it? Will he get your vote? We'll find out. Blackwater Bend Mindbender time. That's right. They bring this portion of the program to you, and want to thank them for doing so. Blackwater Bend is the home of gourmet coffee and tasty treats, as you well know. The home of the Bender Blender, and if you haven't had one, you're not living. It's a must-try. Shock Coffee. Now, I've tried the Shock Coffee a couple times, and I love strong coffee. But Shock Coffee is like cracking a cup. And it's worth a try at least once, just to say you've had it. Whether you keep coming back for it or not, that's up to you, but at least try it once. I like to sneak out from time to time, and I'll tell you what I get when I do sneak. I sneak a Viper, a raspberry mocha, 4 shots of espresso and a raspberry mocha. It's awesome. Blackwater Bend Espresso, not your average drip. Here's your question, and you'll be going for free. I want to give 2 of you an opportunity. So plug in the number right now, 299-7653. 299-7653. Prior to entering the national stage, this well-known political person was the mayor of a small town in Alaska. Small town mayor. A, Don Young. B, Sarah Palin, or C, Lisa Murkowski. Enter to win right now. 2 of you are going to go out there for free. 299-7653. 299-7653. It's often discussed at the assembly level, at the Homer City Council level, probably, dare I say, the state level in Juneau, maybe even the district level, District of Columbia. You know, it's that place back east there where they govern, the small elite gather to govern. And how can we get more people to vote? How can we turn out? Remember Bill Clinton doing the Rock the Vote and all that back in the 90s? I mean, they've been trying for the longest time to get people to come out and vote. And here's my question. How can the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly, under the tutelage and the presidential seal of Linda Murphy, dare turn back term limits or attempt to turn back term limits, which was a people's initiative, and at the same time say, hey, maybe we ought to consider vote by mail so we can increase the turnout. We can increase the voter participation levels. When we do vote and you ignore it, that is the surest way to do one of 2 things. Either really get out the vote or silence the people. And that's what I fear will happen, and I think happens so often. Take the non-prepared foods tax debate here in Homer, Alaska, Homer by the Sea. Oh, well, did you really mean it? Are you sure you meant it? You know what we're going to do? We, the city of Homer, we are going to launch a campaign to convince you to vote differently. here in Homer, so we can continue to collect that portion of the sales tax on your bread all winter long, and so that we can do things like buy new couches and expand the city manager's office. How about that? I mean, that guy doesn't need a shoe horn to get into his office, right? He needs a palatial big office here at City Hall. So this is my question for Assemblyman Bill Smith, Assemblywoman Murphy, and Assemblyman Hal Smalley. These are the three forerunners, if you will, of the term limit repeal. They want to put it back on the ballot. In fact, they've been successful in so doing, and it will be on the ballot in October for you to decide. How on earth do you think you're going to encourage voter participation when you ignore the will of the people when they do vote? It's contrary. It's counterintuitive to the idea of increasing voter turnout. That's my commentary for you on term limits. Blackwater Bend Espresso, don't forget to enter now, 299-7653. Who was a small-town mayor, Don Young, Sarah Palin, or Lisa Murkowski? Please welcome the man himself who would like to replace Mr. Don Young back in Washington, D.C. and be your next congressional candidate for the U.S. House. That's John Cox in Anchor Point. John, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Hey, can I give my answer to your question?
No, do not. Give it away and you'll be gone. No. But seriously, John, what is your background? I mean, we're talking about people having been small-town mayor. We're talking about participation in the public process. Have you any experience when it comes to the political arena outside of being a candidate?
Well, for anybody that's served in the military, after you've reached a certain rank, you know that everything becomes political. If you look at those that are supposed to be our leaders, their decisions are all based on political aspects and not what's right to protect our soldiers and sailors.
And so you've been in the military. Tell me your background.
I am. I was. After I graduated from Bartlett back in I joined the Navy, and I served my 30 years there. And I came back home, and I started running for office.
Well, let me ask you something. You just gave away a little bit of a hint that you've been in Alaska at least since high school age. Where do you hail from originally?
Well, my father was in the Army, and that's what brought me up here as a young teenager. I remember stepping off that plane in the early 70s, and I fell in love with Alaska right away. And I said, this is it. This is my home. Mm-hmm. And it always has been since.
Now, this is your second bid for the U.S. Congress, right?
This is actually my third. In 2010, I knew I didn't have a shot. It was just to start to get the feel of the land, and start getting my name out there. And then in 2012, I started pushing it hard and heavy. And it was like Edison, not all the light bulb attempts were
successful. Yeah.
They were a learning experience for him.
I like the persistence. I do like that. Now, let me ask you, I'm just going to be real blunt, and I'm going to be very, very upfront with you on behalf of those listening.
Sure.
What has Don Young done wrong that you think he needs to be replaced? Why should we not send a seasoned veteran back to Washington, D.C.? My goodness, he's been there since March of 1973 when you stepped off that plane. Why should you replace him, and what has he done wrong?
Well, his political views over the last few years have been just enough to keep him in the limelight. Now, one of the things that I've run across during my previous campaign search runs is that people constantly tell me, hey, we need seniority. Well, you know what? That's part of the problem. You have the individuals that become so senior, they think they're above the law. Now, the federal government is increasingly operating outside the realm of the Constitution. Okay, you have a group of individuals that think, they're above the law, and so that's what happened. So now everybody says, well, Don Young, he's so senior. He is actually the second most senior Republican and the seventh most senior overall. But yet he's in charge of a subcommittee. He's working for Doc Hastings, which is I think 15, 20 years junior to him. So, I mean, he has no clout, i.e., as far as chairmanships of anything, other than the Alaskan Native and American Indian organization.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this then. Specifically, is there something he has not done, or he has, contrary to that, done wrong that you'd like to hold him to task for?
Now that you bring that up, just recently there was a bill to open up ANWR. I mean, we've been pushing and fighting to get the drilling up there and get that oil out of there. And he co-sponsored the bill. Now, this was in the paper. If anybody wants to doubt me, they can look it up. He co-sponsored the bill, and when it went to the floor for a vote, instead of showing up to vote on it, he said, I'm going on my hunting trip to Africa. He had this planned over a year ago to go on this trip. Now, we're paying his salary for him to represent us. And it's obvious he doesn't want to do that.
You've got an uphill battle. You know that, right? I mean,
I know. And that's one of the things that people have to understand about me is that I'll never back down. I'll keep coming at you, and I'll keep coming at you until you finally say, okay, I've had enough of this guy. I'm out of here.
Where can people go and learn more about you? Do you have a website established or anything online?
They can go to John R. Cox for Congress.
Okay. And that's with an H, right? John.
R. Cox, C-O-X,
okay.
Congress.com.
.com, okay.
And what they'll do is they'll run across, it hasn't been updated yet. There still says 2012 on it. That needs to be corrected.
Okay. But basically, that's a place where people can go, reach out to you, get a little more information about who you are and your background, and make an informed decision on their own.
That's right. And what I also tell people is that they can email me through Facebook or at yahoo.com, and I promise I will get back to them as quickly as I can with a response to their questions. All
right, John, best of luck. You're welcome to stay in touch with us as issues arise, or you've got a message you'd like to get out there as we get closer. Feel free to stay in touch, and we'll be reaching out to Congressman Young's office as well. And who knows, perhaps we could even orchestrate a little sit-down debate.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. I'll debate him anytime, some of the things that people need to pose to him and question him is like Lost. The law of the sea treaty, he won't make a comment or make a stance on it. His response is always, that's a Senate issue. No, he is there to represent the people, and he needs to speak up. I mean, what happens if this Lost program passes? We as Alaskans will wind up losing our state sovereignty. I mean, it makes no sense if we go out here in the waters and drill. We spend our money, we strike oil, and then we have to give that money to the United Nations? Come on. That's wrong.
John R. Cox, your U.S. candidate, potentially on the line with me. John, thank you very much, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
You're welcome. And don't you go anywhere. We'll answer the Blackwater Bend Mindbender question and have more from Homer City Council meeting last night. You're listening to Alaska Matters. John Cox, what do you think? It's a big job. It's a big job when you go up against a senior representative. 40 years. I was barely alive when Representative Don Young went to office there in Washington, D.C., on your behalf. It's probably too late to get the exact answer I was looking for because I'm about to give it. But I want to thank everybody who did participate in our Blackwater Bend Mindbender. Nobody, not one of you, got it right. Well, okay, half of you, let me count here. It almost doesn't matter, but I want you to know that I do count you. Out of 28 respondents, best I can count, one of you, many of you got it half right, and that's to say Sarah Palin. Yes, Sarah Palin was, prior to entering the national political stage, a small-town Alaskan mayor. A mayor in an Alaskan small town, if you will. But so was, and this is the answer I was actually looking for, Don Young. I didn't know this. Congressman Young first entered public service in 1964 when he was elected mayor of Fort Yukon. 2 years later, Alaskan voters elected him to the state legislature in Juneau, where he served the state house from 1966 to 1970, and later in the state senate from 1970 to 1973, just hours after being sworn into the United States House of Representatives in 1973, he found himself leading the historic battle for the approval of the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. And for that, I believe, you and I will be forever grateful. I think that was, obviously that has made Alaska. It is the secret to our success. It is, if you will, the Thousand Island dressing to the Big Mac. Without it, it just ain't the same. All you've got are a couple of patties there and no secret sauce. And that, of course, is something to be congratulated. And I've seen Congressman Don Young actually wandering around. We were to the Sportsman show. I want to say it was at the Sully, and we'd spilled over into that Ben Boeke ice arena. They had it split out between the two. And I see this very distinguished person walking around. He's got the little cap that you see him wearing and his medals and his suit and his big Congress button and all that. walking around, shaking hands, kissing babies, really just your consummate politician, nice guy, and I believe to be a genuine person. But I guess the question is John Cox right? Is it time to say, you know what, seniority isn't everything it's cracked up to be, and is it what our founding fathers had in mind? So I'll reach out to the congressman's office. I doubt I'll get any response, to be honest with you. It's not something I anticipate hearing back from his office or him. Maybe his most recent soiree into Alaskan radio has taught him a thing or two. Perhaps somebody has introduced him to an urban dictionary and or just some common sense when it pertains to epithets that are not acceptable. But that notwithstanding, I'm not expecting a call back or an email back, anything other than just perfunctory. But if Congressman Young wishes to air on this program, I'd be happy to have, not air as an error, but error, his voice on this program, then I'd be happy to have him. Like I said, I just don't think so. And the Senator, Mark Begich, I've said this before, and I've actually said this quite a few times, is that I think he's proven one thing, if nothing else, that seniority is not everything. Senator Begich was instrumental in bringing forth Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which is just continually, daily, turning more and more. It's like a piece of meat that's left out on the counter. The first night, overnight, you look at it and you go, well, I really can't tell the difference. Maybe it's okay. Second night, it's gray. Went from a nice deep red to a pink pale to a gray. Then the fuzz begins to grow. And that's mold. And that's mildew. That's decay. That is exactly what is happening to Obama-Begich care as we speak. Continually, and you know this, continually things are being delayed. The mandate's being delayed. The requirements of a limit on deductibility and cost provisions and so forth being delayed. Businesses having to participate being delayed. Every single day you're learning something new, and you know why it is. It's so that Senator Mark Begich, can continue to campaign and not have Obamacare right at his heels. Well, that's what you and I are here for. That's exactly why you and I come together every single week, and we should be coming together at our dinner tables and our coffee clatches and our quilting circles and wherever else we are, and discussing the actual implications and ramifications of this type of legislation in the cover of darkness. In the cover of darkness. I wish I had the Nancy Pelosi clip handy. I don't, but we've played it so many times before. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the term limits. I want to talk a little bit more about what happened at the council meeting last night and a possible solution that I'd like to offer that, again, we've discussed before, but I think it's worth hitting again. And it's in terms of how we actually govern ourselves and who's responsible for that and where has the trust gone. Well, I trust that you'll be here on the other side of this break on Alaska Matters. You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Chris Story, along with Dave Webb, engineering the broadcast back up at the mothership of KGTL. You can listen to this program anytime you want at VentureAlaskaRadio.com. At VentureAlaskaRadio.com. I'm on Facebook, and a couple ways to friend me there. We just created a public page for Chris Story, and it's where we're going to dump a lot of sound bites from this program and things that I've written and commentary, etc. on a local, statewide, and national level. So go find me, friend me, like me. We'll have a good time together on Facebook. The email address is story@xyz.net. Story@xyz.net. The tale of two cities really is happening before you. One that is of the people and by the people, and one that is shoved at the people and down the throats of the people. And I think it's time that you make a decision. Who and how do you want to be governed? Who do you want to govern you, and how do you want them to do it? Do you want to be told continually that it's a dangerous path to spread misinformation? Misinformation, i.e. as designed and shall we say, defined as something that differs from what you think, what you, the council, think, and what the city manager has told you, etc. Here's the thing. If we had an elected official that was running the community, and I do not hold this against any mayor, present or past, as it pertains to their job. Their job is literally cut ribbons, shake hands, make sure the meeting starts on time, make sure that 3-minute rule is adhered to, perfunctory rules of Robert's Rules of Order are followed, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about the actual head of the community, which is currently the city manager. Now, if I were to tell you that the city manager was aware of and responded. Let me put it another way. I don't know why I do this to myself. I've brought something to the attention of the city manager that he has ignored completely. Now, maybe just because I've become a gadfly, if you will. I've become a political gadfly that he can choose to ignore. I don't mind that. I don't want his favorable attention. I don't seek his favor. I don't seek his company or counsel. But by golly, when I bring something to your attention, regardless of who I am, regardless of what I've said about you and the fact that I think that you probably ought not to have received a 2-year extension on your contract, well, it's done. It's behind us. When I bring a safety matter to your attention and you disregard it and you ignore it, to me, that is a violation of the public trust. I want to tell you about it. It'll be next Tuesday. I will go into the exact details of the different heads of the departments that ignored it. I will read to you from the emails. I will read to you from my accounting of what happened, as well as the emails, and then the chirp, lack of response from anybody in a leadership role. It's sickening. You won't believe it. You won't believe your ears when I tell you next Tuesday what I went through, I put myself out there for you, and I was ignored completely. It's mind-boggling. The fact that this even happened, number one, that I suspected that it happened, brought attention to it, discovered it, did enough digging, did some citizen journalism, if you will, or just investigatory eye-opening, found out the real answer and the truth, exposed it to the leaders of your community, ignored me completely. Nothing to say about it. Nothing. Not a single one of them. It's shocking. Wait till you hear it. It's next Tuesday. Right now, let's go back to last night's city council meeting. This is Beauregard Burgess on the city council.
My name is Beauregard Burgess.
I should back up and say he's actually... Do I have the other clip where the mayor chastises him? I think this is it. No. Let's go on with this. I'll just tell you. Let me give you the background. So Mike Dye is asked to stand during the public hearing for a question. So he says, sure, I'll answer the question. David Lewis admonishes him for not, in the Homer Voice for Business ad, saying water and sewer, that it's misleading, misinformation again. Well, you and I both know when you consider paying the water bill, it's sewer. You know that. Well, fine. Mike conceded, okay, fine. Should have said water and sewer, limited space. Sorry, didn't mean to mislead. Beauregard then says he's got some questions, and he begins to chastise Mike for his business-friendly approach, and Mike corrects him, as you've already heard. And then they go back through a little bit of a tete-a-tete, and the mayor steps in and says, no, you can't do that. And Bo says, well, I'm a member of the public. And so she says, okay, you can testify. This is his public testimony as a council person who's taken that hat off, and he's now sitting in front of the council as a member of the public.
A resident of the city of Homer. And I find it hard to understand why something that saves the majority of the people in the community money, 58%, and the majority of businesses in the city, 79% by the figures that we had in our packet, 75% of commercial users see their rates reduced. Implementing a model that helps us move forward and address the larger issue, which is infill, and making sure that we add more users to our system to make it more economically viable. I struggle to see how this isn't a rate structure that isn't business-friendly or community-friendly.
I can understand you struggling to see that, but who wants to infill, meaning develop inside the city limits? Builders, developers, people are telling me constantly, until something changes, they're done. They just don't want to put up with it anymore. You've got a code compliance officer that doesn't know the code, enforces erroneous codes. She's then thwarted with even more erroneous codes to enforce, and that needs to fall at the hands of the council. You need to take responsibility for that. And so for the fact that young Bo Burgess doesn't understand and is failing to see the problem here, the problem is outlined in my article in tomorrow's Homer Tribune. It's a lack of trust. We just simply don't trust you, to quote Assemblyman Charlie Pierce. I don't trust you. I loved his other line. I don't want you in my backyard, and I don't trust you. It's exactly right. We don't trust you anymore, Bo. You've burned the trust. When you said that's a dangerous path and, better not follow that path, you've lost people's trust. When you made a $250,000 mistake and then John, the new finance director, finds it in the blink of an eye, and then we quickly correct it and we're making sausage up there in front of everybody, and it's just this awful display of public lawmaking on display, and it's ad hoc and it's here and there. You've lost the trust of the people, and you've got to earn it back. I'll explain to you more, and let me just tell you, next Tuesday, don't miss this program. I'm going to unveil the situation. It's a health and safety concern, and it was ignored by every public official, every person that had brought it to their attention, completely ignored, and you will not believe the lunacy of this situation. The fact that it even had to come up is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. This program's available online at VentureAlaskaRadio.com. Dave Webb and I will both be going to two different parts of the state. We'll talk about that tomorrow on Radio Realty, our sister program on KPEN 102 FM, 1230 tomorrow. Great program in store. So for those of you that aren't going on vacation over the weekend, and those of you that are on vacation, whatever you do, make sure that you are enjoying every single minute of every day. You just never know. This may be your last day. Live like there's no tomorrow. And whatever else you do, remember that Alaska matters. And my friend, and I mean this sincerely, so do you. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Radio Realty.